Hello. Today we're going to talk about modules and an introduction to the pygame library in Python. So we learned how to write Python code in a file, and that file should have the extension .py, and that's what we call a script. Now you can have your entire program or your entire system in one file, but as it gets more complicated and as it gets more has if you have lots of code, it's not good that you have everything written in one file. It's very difficult to maintain uh, and it is very difficult to update. So a better way to have multiple files, so split the code in multiple files. So the same thing that we call the script, like that file that you used to call the script, so you can also call it module because it can be imported into another file, as you can see here. Let me just bring the annotation here. So as you see here, we have a file called calculator.py, and you have a couple of things. Now here, when you define a name that has all capital letters in Python, and is considered a constant. Okay, then you have a name that has a small letters or a mix between small and capital letters, then that's a variable. Okay, so here we have a file called calculator.py, and then we have pi that is a constant, and then x is a variable, and then we have a couple of functions and also a class. Okay, so this all what we defined here can be imported into another module. So here we have another file called main.py, and we want to use what we defined here. So everything we define here, constants, variables, functions, classes, everything we define here is accessible and is accessible through that module. So if we say import and just the file name without the py extension, we are importing that what is defined here into this file. So this file in itself is a module, so we can pretty much importing a module within a module. But there is like name spacing. So here, everything defined here was defined within the calculator, so it is accessible through that name. Okay, so if we have something defined in the min.py that has the same name, it's not a problem because we can use that dot keyword, the dot operator, to access that variable. So it's not, it doesn't create a name conflict. Okay, if we keep it this way, it doesn't create a name conflict. So we have to be careful. We have to know what kind of names we are using in the file before importing to make sure that we are not creating conflicts. Well, at this moment, when we just import with the file name and refer to everything with using that name, there's no problem. There's no conflict there because that name, the name of the module, creates a namespace as well. Okay, something that we should be aware of is that when we have variables, we can write to the variables too. So it's not just that we can read, we can write too, but we have to be careful with that. All right, so here we have the pi, we can read it, we can call the function, we can create an instance of that person class, and we can read the variable as well, read or write to the variables. Okay, but we have to refer to it with the name of the file. And this name might be not convenient, might be too long or not convenient, or maybe causing conflict, might cause a conflict. The name itself of the name of the module itself might cause a conflict. So we can use something called alias. So we can define another name, like a nickname kind of. So the original name is calculator, but we use the as keyword to define another name that we can use locally here. Okay, so that's an alias for the calculator. Using the full word, we just use that word, that alias in its place. Okay. Another way to import things like functions and variables from a module is to, like, you don't have to import everything within module. So let's say we are only interested in the person class. We're not interested in anything else. So we can import only that. But here we have to be careful because the variable itself will be coming directly. We're not gonna refer to it using the dot operator with the module name. So we have to make sure that this name is not gonna create conflicts here. All right. So how do we import something specific from the module? We start with the keyword from, and then the name of the module, and then the keyword import, and then we list whatever we want to import specifically. So it doesn't have to be one thing, it can be multiple, and they don't have to be of the same type. They can be like, I can have person, comma, add, comma, subtract, and ignore the other thing. So I can import multiple things from the same module using that from keyword. So if we start with from, module name, and then import, and then we list the specific variables or the specific items that we want to import. And we can use it as if it was defined within that same file. Okay, so here we just using importing the person class, and then we can define an instance out of it, and we can use it as a parent of a class. So here's an inheritance. Okay, so we can use it as if it was defined within that file. Now, Python libraries are pretty much like a set of modules. So you can create a group of modules together. We call them library, but the library usually can contain more than just the modules. You can have some resources like images and other files and tools that come with it. Like for example, the PyTest that we've been using in the labs is a library. We didn't use it in the code, so we didn't import it in the code. If you notice in the labs that we don't import it, but we use the command line tool that comes with it. Okay. So we can always, like, it is possible that for us to import the PyTest within our code and use its modules, but so a library is not only the modules. A library can be modules and other things like command line tools. Another example is the Pygame. That's the tool that we're gonna use to create the project for this course. And this one doesn't come with a command line. It comes with just the modules that are used to create the games. And then these modules are created on top of another gaming library called SDL, and adds to it. Okay, and you can look at learn more about it here. So we're gonna introduce this tool and start by creating a simple game, not necessarily a game yet, but it's like simple screen, and we'll see how to add things to it. All right, so that's what we're gonna talk about next.